Hello everyone. Thank you everyone for your company, discipline and mindfulness, and particularly deep dedication to learn the very teachings of the Buddha Dharma by having your evening set aside and not taken up by other things, but deliberately put this time aside to learn consistently. In the monastery, when they study this kind of text, they will usually do the roll call and write down everybody's name and so on. And so, of course, we can see everyone being very, very diligent and coming together. Of course, no one is imposing on us, on anything, but maybe our own deep interest, learning the Dharma, that is so useful, so powerful, so enlightening. It's not only for our own evening, but other days, when we remember the teachings, how much it helps. But if we don't listen regularly, if we don't read enough, then we don't have not much to remember, nothing much to recollect, because we haven't heard nothing like this before. So we only heard of a tit for tat and zero tolerance and all that sort of rubbish. So, so that's all people do, because they haven't heard any other way of doing it. So that's why teachings of the Dharma is not just for the time that you're listening, not just you, not just now, just for future, for other people, for other situations, that this teaching will come very handy, Okay, so you all know that, don't you? So therefore, welcome to the club. Thank you. Let's do our prayer. Amazing reason to renew our refuge in the Triple Gem, And even when we listening to the teaching, we are reiterating our refuge in the Dharma. We're revalidating our refuge in the Dharma, because more we listen, more we realize how true the Dharma is, how beneficial, how helpful, how liberating it is. But anyway, formality requires us to do say the refuge prayers and the generation of the four immeasurables. So let's do that, everyone. Thank you. Join your hands at the heart and sit still in good meditative prayerful position. Think of all the people in this very troubled world. We are so fortunate that we can listen Dharma in peaceful surroundings. Others are just having to run and flee and go under bunkers days and days and days. Just imagine, think of them. May this little effort of listening to Dharma might cause something to stop to this incessant bombardment and fighting that is so senseless. How would anybody do that? Gosh, something definitely is not right. So we wish to send these feelings and devotions, prayers, whatever they wish to do, may they bring the causes of happiness, ease, kindness, peace, tolerance, and abstention of violence. Not violence, not aggression. May they come to know this is not the way to go, and bring their mind back to the senses, and bring some breathing space for all, and find the happiness and friendship that we should all rejoice. In every neighboring countries they should know these important ways. So with this dedication and mindfulness and prayerfulness, we do this practice. Oyenda Buddha Dharma Asanga Ajara Vyada Ladam Avarcha Ajandala Ajara Buddha Yenda Buddha Dharma Asanga Ajara Vyada Ladam Mahayana Ajandala Ajara Vajra and Buddha Dharma Asanga Ajara Vajra Vajra Ajandala Ajara Vada. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they know a power from the happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, aversion of those near and far. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they know a power from the happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, aversion of those near and far. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they know a power from happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, aversion of those near and far. Godin Jadayan Ambrada Position of Vada Yajanda Dharma Agrela Hangam Vigos. So, welcome back everybody. So we are continuing the study of the Asanga's Mahayana Sutra, Uttaratantra Sutra, Shastra, which is subtitled as the 7 Vajra points. The 7 Vajra points is, I just put it there so easier to remember, because the main subject of the text covers these 7 Vajra points. And first 3 Vajra points are Vajra point of the Buddha, the Vajra point of the Dharma, Vajra point of the Sangha. Vajra point means they are very essential point. So the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha are the result. And then the 4th Vajra point is the Buddha nature. You cannot attain Buddhahood even if you have Dharma, even if you meet with Sangha, unless you have Buddha nature. The good thing about that is all sentient beings have this Buddha nature. So the subject we are discussing is still of the first chapter, which is discussing the Buddha nature. We talked about the 10 characteristics of the Buddha nature, and then the last line, which we finished last week, it says, hidden in the shell of affliction, it will be, means the Buddha nature will be understood with the similes. So there are very famous 9 similes. These 9 similes are not just 9 analogies, but 9 very specific analogies. Not only they are different from each other, but the sequence in which they are presented all has a lot to do with the stages of the development of the individual practitioner go through. So as you have got the handout today, tonight we're going to cover all the 9 similes. These 9 similes are discussed first with a brief summary of what the 9 similes are, and how they relate to the Buddha nature, and then extensive explanation on each of the 9 similes, and then summary of that. So, for brief summary of the 9 similes, of the hidden Buddha nature. So we were talking about Buddha nature being hidden, and so which means that most of the time people aren't acting as if they have the compassion or patience or tolerance. They have when they're in a very, very good mood. But most of the time they don't show any predisposition to kindness. They all show predisposition to aggression and instead of patience, impatience, and instead of understanding, misunderstanding, instead of non-violence and aggression. So this is why the sentient beings are not able to reveal the true Buddha nature. So therefore, what we have in the handout, verse number 96, just like a Buddha image in a moldy lotus flower. That's the first analogy, first simile. Second analogy is honey with bees, okay, like a honeycomb or somewhere. And then unhusked grain, third. And gold covered by a rag, fourth. And the fifth, mine and in the earth. Sixth, shoot and so on, sprouting from a little fruit. And seventh, statue of victorious one in a tattered rag. And then unborn ruler in a destitute woman's womb. Ninth, a precious statue in the mold. Buddha nature, like these 9 analogies, Buddha nature abides within all sentient beings. So abide meaning it is there, but they are obscured by the defilements of the adventitious poisons. So the fact that the Buddha nature is not manifesting in terms of kindness, generosity, tolerance, forgiveness. When one is awakened, Buddha nature is very manifestly, you will practice all of that. The reason most sentient beings are not showing is because they are obscured by the defilements, by all the different kinds of defilements, from the very ordinary to until you reach the 10th bhumi. There are many kinds of defilements. These defilements are all adventitious. They are adventitious, meaning they are temporal. So it's very important to know they are temporal. Usually when we see somebody angry, and when somebody made a mistake, we think that's him. We don't think that's the adventitious behavior. We lump the person with his mistake, and then we just reject him or her outright, and never think there is. So that's the problem. We also do that sometimes with ourselves. That's me, because they did something wrong, and they think that's me, and they never give a chance themselves to change from that, because they are thinking that the mistakes of the person's afflictions are permanent, which they are not. So that's why this is very important, that we are only temporarily obscured by defilements. Otherwise, all of these 9 analogy will elucidate how we can uncover these things. Then the defilements. So the defilements comes from desire, hatred, and ignorance. These 3 gross defilements. We call 3 root poisons. 3 root poisons. So on top of that, if you add jealousy and arrogance, and then wrong view, these are 6 root defilements. And then there are 22 secondary defilements. Okay, so we won't go through the list in this teaching, because in the mind and its functions, we actually discuss all those. I think those of you who did the course on emotional intelligence, we went through those. Anyway, so there are many classes of defilements. So the defilements correspond to the lotus, because lotus is hiding the Buddha nature, the Buddha. The bees is hiding the honey. The husk is hiding the grain. The rag is hiding the gold, and the earth is hiding the mine. The peel is hiding the fruit. The tattered rag is hiding the Victor Buddha image, and the pregnant woman doesn't know that her would-be child is going to be king. So therefore, those first analogies, defilements. These are analogies of defilements, and defilements are the coverings, and that is hidden under the defilements are the Buddha nature. The Buddha nature correspond to the Buddha, the honey, the grain, the gold, the mine, the fruit, the precious statue, and supreme ruler of the land, and the precious gem are similar to the supreme immaculate Buddha nature. So that is the summary. That's just the summary, okay? That's just the summary, the correspondence between the 9 defilements and the 9 analogies of the Buddha nature. Of course, Buddha nature are only different analogies used, but they are all same. Buddha nature doesn't have, we already learned the Buddha nature is immutable, it's universal, it's omnipresent, and all the 10 characteristics, we went through all of that. So analogies of the Buddha nature are like the Buddha, honey, grain, mold, gold, and so on. But they each have really deep meanings later on when you go through. And same goes with the defilements. The defilements, lotus that covers the image, the bees that covers the honey, the husk that covers the grain. All of these respectively represent different kinds of defilements, according to us as the sentient being practitioners who have realized bodhicitta, who have taken bodhisattva vows and renews bodhicitta regularly and always meditate on bodhicitta regularly. So all beginners, practitioners have a particular kind of defilements that they need to overcome, represented by at least the first 4 analogies. After that, all the analogies of defilement represent for those who are on a path of seeing, path of meditation, path of normal learning. So these 9 analogies are not random, okay? They have really deep meanings. We won't cover those meanings tonight, but next week we will. But tonight we will identify all the 9 similes and the Buddha nature. So that's just brief summary. Now the extensive explanation of the first analogy is explanation of the Buddha image in a moldy lotus flower. So each of these have minimum of 3 verses. What it does is first 2 verses explains individually, and then the third verse put them all together. So what I remember Khenpo Kedru, when he gave us teaching, the manner how the Uttaratantra Shastra explains looks like repetitive, but it's not repetitive. He gives a little bit of brief, and then he elaborates, and then summarizes, like a shape of a grain. The right end and the left end is very little bit sharper, and the middle end is little bit bigger, if it's a good grain size. Good healthy grains are like that. Good Aussie, I would say wheat is like that. Shape is very good. So good teaching should always have a brief explanation, and then the detailed explanation, and then the summary. Okay, so you will see this from each of these 3 analogies. Okay, first one. Just as someone with a vision upon seeing how Tathagata, means statue of the Buddha, in moldy lotus, statue of the Buddha in the moldy lotus flower, radiate 1,000 marks, because the Buddha in the lotus, even though it's covered by the lotus, but he radiate 1,000 marks. 1,000 marks meaning the signs of the Buddha, like the 32 major and 80 minor marks, and Buddha actually radiate those qualities. Only one who has the vision sees that. Most people don't see the Buddha image in the moldy lotus flower. Would reveal himself from the shroud of the lotus petals. So this analogy, what does this suggest is we have no vision that people have Buddha nature, or we have Buddha nature. But when we have the knowledge that we have Buddha nature, then even though outwardly it's manifesting the moldy lotus flower, like defilements, like a person is full of desire, the person is full of desire or full of whatever. Desire is the main example here. Person is so desirous. You never thought a practitioner could have so much desire. But even though he's got desire, Most people think he's just what he desires. He's got no other quality. But the one who sees practitioners who knows the Buddha nature, he can see the Buddha nature still completely intact in that moldy, desirous person. Desirous person. Okay. Similarly, the Sugata means Tathagata, with his Buddha eye, because the Buddha eye means wisdom eye, sees his own dharmata, even in those in the interminable hell. Interminable hell is the heaviest of all 18 hells. There are 18 hells, you know, 8 that are cold, 8 that are hot, and then neighboring and then minor hell. There are 18 hells. Out of that, the worst of the hot hell is called interminable hell because there's no breaks there. So sometimes it's called in Sanskrit Avicii hell, Narame in Tibetan. Even someone is in Avicii hell, the enlightened one would not reject the sentient being even in the Avicii hell because he can see that just like his own dharmata also exists in every sentient being, even in those in hell. And with his infinite compassion, which is not obscure, liberate us from the obscuration. Now, what does this verse teaches us? That when we see someone is really difficult, like Putin, I don't know how difficult you find him, but for example, for the sake of the teaching, topical enough, most people find why Putin is there, who put him in there, and so on and so forth. But he too has Buddha nature. Think like this. He too has Buddha nature. He too really thinks that his people has been wrongly treated by others, and he's trying to do something. He too has a Buddha nature. And if you and I can't see that, that's because we haven't got the Buddha eye. We have this deluded eye, and we are really angry at him. But we don't realize he too has a really strong wish to do some good in what he called denazification or whatever. It's so weird when he's so deluded. The moldy lotus is all over him. Moldy lotus all over him. It doesn't allow anybody to see the Buddha nature in there. So it's all hidden. Okay, the divine eye of Sugata, abiding in the unopened lotus, sees and causes lotus petals to open wide, because the moldy lotus is all closed, you don't see the Buddha within. So the one, you will slowly open the lotus petal. Similarly, although obscured by defilements such as desire and hatred, seeing Buddha nature of the perfect Buddha in beings, the sage through his compassion vanquishes all the obscurations. So what does this mean? We need to also look at someone like Putin, not generate hate to him, because if it did, we are going to be another moldy. We're going to be covered in more, even smellier than smellier than the smelly thing in Russia. We become very smelly and down under. So don't become more smelly than the thing you think is complaining about. So you have to be kind to him, towards him, and that sage through his compassion. We who have Buddha nature, we need to radiate compassion to someone like him and vanquish all the obscuration, all the deluded obscuration of us versus him, or wrong versus right. And so we should not get into this who's right, who's wrong, but instead develop compassion to all parties included. What he thought his soldiers were sent to denazify, liberate others, came in body bags. Thousands of bodies coming back instead of denazifying. They are de-Russianizing every Russian who went there. So, that's terrible, isn't it? De-Russianizing all these 10,000 soldiers, they're all buried underground. Look at that delusion. How deluded it is. So we need to be compassionate. He didn't know the extent of his moldiness. And that moldiness just completely made all the soldiers do the things that was completely unright, completely illegal, whatever it is. Now everybody knows it, but nobody can do it because of the seriousness of the afflictions and the moldiness of the lotus that wasn't open. So have a kindness, send compassion to him and to every single soldier who was killed. It doesn't matter whose soldier, every single other people. When you look at from the other point of view, yes, all those people who want to defend the country, they're also acting just like him. And there is no winner in this. They're both in the moldy lotus flower. The statue isn't about open. Very few people sees the good in anything, and because of this suffering. So we need to, if we are just intending sage, we want to become we are wanting to be a sage. So through our compassion, we should vanquish all our anger, all our blame and resentment and bias against and towards that. If you do that, then we see, oh, he too has Buddha nature. But look, when it's not discovered, when the Buddha nature is not predisposed, when Buddha nature does not meet with the right causes and conditions, look at that, how moldy it can get, how totally ignores his overall power. The man can do so much good in his position, oh gosh, but he's completely taken up by the moldy lotus flower, and he isn't able to come out. Nobody's opening it. He's not able to do it because he's not aided by companions. He hasn't met the Buddha gem, Dharma gem, Sangha gem. How could the Buddha nature of him can germinate? Because he hasn't met the Buddha activities in his life because of situations. So that's the analogy of we need to be kind to whoever. No matter how terrible somebody's doing, we should think their afflictions are but temporary and they are removable only if someone were able to compassionately teach him, saying he too has a Buddha nature within the moldiness. He too has a wish to do good for his people, or I don't know what he has, but looks pretty misguided. But if he so have some kind of kind thoughts towards him. That's the first simile. Second one, extensive explanation. So that's mainly example of desire. Second example is honey and bee. Now this is really beautiful. When you think about it, there's a lot of things to meditate on this. Having spotted honey amidst the swarm of bees, a skilled beekeeper would skillfully extract honey from the bees. How does he do? Oh, I'm told he puts smoke or something. He wears some kind of funny hats. He does all sorts of things. So just have a look on the net about beekeeping. Oh, you have to do months and months course how to become a skillful beekeeper, so that you don't get stung by the bees, but instead you can make them to make honey for you. So hate is very difficult emotions, but if you learn how to understand the hate, work with the hate is unrealized love. So most of the honey produced by bee is actually produced by the very, very sharp beak that might sting you. So how many times the bee waves his little wings? Thousands of times to produce even one drop of nectar. So people are agitated by the anger, Anyway, so would skillfully extract honey from the bees. And some of you might even have done a bit of beekeeping. You know what I'm talking about. So similarly, the omniscient eye of the great sage, the omniscient eye of great sage is the skilled beekeeper. Yeah? Upon seeing the honey-like Buddha potential, Buddha nature, So all the bees produce. Bees are the one that produce the honey. Don't try to think they will sting you. It's the bee that actually that you if you don't know how to work with the bee, they will sting you. But if you work with them, they'll make honey for you. So those people who are difficult to you, who are angry, who abuse you, who's attack you, who despise you, they are bees. Bees. You should know how to keep those bees. If you're interested in honey, your Buddha nature cannot manifest unless you have these bees. Thich Nhat Hanh talk about the mud and flower. So that's the first one. First one is the mud and flower. He's using that from this text actually. Mud. Without the mud, there's no flower, no sunshine, no water. How could you have beautiful flower? Oh, that's right. So with difficult people or difficult circumstances, you practice dharma, you take refuge, you put on the little hat and put the smoking thing to keep the bee don't bite you, but you can easily extract the bee. And you can just, these days there's a lot of devices, tools that you can also control from remote. You can watch whether you can go and extract the honey or not. You can actually keep from long distance. These days there's a lot of beekeeping things. See, Dharma is about beekeeping, working with difficult stinging sentient beings, working with the stinging sentient beings. Okay. If you have a sharp-tongued partner or someone, just be gentle with them. They will teach you how to bring the honey. They are the one working with them that you will be able to bring the Buddha nature within you. So upon seeing the honey-like potential Buddha nature, completely abandons the bee-like obscuration. Yeah. So you don't attack the bee, you work with the bee. So why? Because the bees are misunderstood as that will sting you. No, bees by using that very sharp beak produces. Did you know the bee? What is the honey? Honey in Tibetan we call we call bee sputum. Bee sputum. They are bee sputum. Yeah, bee sputums. They are bee sputums, bee salivas, and silk is also saliva of the silkworms, So most of us, we're always using those salivas of the bees and silkworms. So therefore, how can you have saliva without the sentient being that produce the saliva? You can't drink your own saliva as honey, can you? No, nobody wants your saliva. You can have them as a specimen to check at the doctors, but otherwise your saliva will have to be flushed away straight away, and nobody wants to bottle it up and sell it. So in terms of your saliva, you have no value. But bee saliva, so you can't have bee saliva without bee. So you have to work with sentient beings. Only working with sentient beings that sting you means who angers you, who makes you upset, who irritates you. This is an analogy of hatred actually. So instead of aggressively working with the bee, you need to work to attract the bees. You need to make those beehives so that you can attract the bees, come from everywhere. They go and collect all the honey from all the flowers everywhere in a whole vicinity, whole valley, and you put a miserable hive in your backyard. What makes them come to you? You see, you have to make them come to you to produce bring the honey, because they brought the honey from the flowers. They don't produce honey because of your miserable beehive. If there are no flowers, there will be no bee, let alone honey. Your miserable beehive is completely useless. So your beehive is not the source of honey. Your beehive is one of the many causes. It's not an independent cause of your honey, okay? So don't think that you purchased the beehive and therefore you're the, no. You should appreciate the bee taking all the honey of the neighbor's flowers. and everybody's flower. So next time you should say grace before take honey, It's lots of the honey of other people's flower that your bees have stolen or kept, brought into your beehives. You see? So those bees the bees will not sting you. The beekeepers don't work aggressively with bee. They have to work with the bee very carefully. Like the great sage with omniscient eye, the beekeeper with a very skilled beekeeper knows exactly how to make it easy for the bees to come. Some of them make the honeycombs themselves. You can buy those honeycombs. You can buy the ready-made ones. So that they come, So like that, you have to work with the people you have brought into your life. The person you are living, you invited them. You said, "Can I live with you? Or can you be my son or daughter?" So if they are sharp-tongued or whatever, you need to work with them. They have Buddha nature. They're enabling you to grow and unfold. Okay? So then the elaboration of that two verses is, with the intent to extract honey that is covered by millions of bees. Did you notice that? It's not one or two. Millions of bees. Uncountable number of bees. Swarm of bees, they call it. The beekeeper disperses the bee and then procures the honey and uses as much as he wishes. The unpolluted awareness that is present in all sentient beings is similar to the honey. So the honey, sentient beings are the honey. What you have to work with is the bee. Bees are the obscurations, their emotions, their anger, and yours too. So, similar to the honey, and the victors, skilled in keeping the bee like affliction, resembles the beekeeper. Beekeeper. So you have to be the one who cultivates the Buddha nature. You have to not reject those people, saying, "I can't work with such people," but try to work with them with patiently, with gentleness, with kindness. Even if they are sharp-tongued or they are very angry, just know that they really have Buddha nature. They really mean very well. And don't get agitated with them. Don't talk that they are bad. Just say, "They teach me so much. I have more anger than I think his anger is problem. Oh, they're actually teaching me more." So that's how you're procuring your honey. If you think the other is wrong and you are some kind of a victim of them, then you're going to be that useless bee that doesn't produce any honey at all. So therefore, this second analogy is very good to remember when you have people who are really angry, aggressive, and difficult to work with. You need to see them, no matter how unskillful or abrupt or aggressive they are, they too mean it very well. They too have a lot of generosity. They too have Buddha nature. So I should not be distracted by their kind of outer behavior that is advantageous and temporary. If I work with them, this will enable me to procure the very honey while not fighting with the bee. It's very important, isn't it? Very good analogy how we should work with sentient beings. Okay? That's the second analogy. Third analogy is the grain and the husk. Now, this is it says the unhusked kernel of the grain is not fit to eat for a man. Yeah, most people will not eat unhusked rice. Even the horses will find it difficult to eat. Animals usually think better, but man does not eat unhusked rice. Do you? They don't. And those who wish to put the grain to use, such as food, would need to remove the husk from the grain. So they have to do the unhusking. they have to put through the machine, or in all the primitive ways they have to beat this strong. In Tibet and India, in all that, they make mules and cows and animals run on the grain, so they are unhusked. They do that. So it's a big process to unhusk the grain. Similarly, until all sentient beings mix with the impurities of afflictions are not liberated from affliction, the victors will not accomplish Buddha activity in the three realms of existence. So therefore, we have to work with sentient beings, however rough their behavior is, like the husk. You can't work with it. You can't eat unhusked rice. But if you know how to unhusk the grain, likewise, you know how to tame those sentient beings. Those people who are rough, don't tell they are rough, but they still give them little praises. Give them that what they're good at, and then really give them support. Acknowledge the good things they do. You wouldn't believe how easily someone will starting to feel confident when you give them the praise. Then whatever the roughness of their behavior there exists, and you don't reject them with the husk. When you're going to eat the grain, only when you need to eat the grain you remove the husk. Otherwise, keep it with the grain, with the husk. They say in India, they don't unhusk the rice unless they wanted to eat the rice tomorrow. Why? Because unhusked rice live long. They don't go off very quickly. So there is a reason why the husk is kept. So it's very important to know how to unhusk the grain. Don't throw the grain with the husk. Don't throw the grain with the husk. Like don't throw the baby with the bath water. You see, okay. Don't reject sentient beings who are rough, who are really abrupt, who are a little bit sort of whatever it is. Don't reject them with the husk. Slowly learn to unhusk them through your gentleness. Through try to get a grain unhusking machine, like meditation, like mindfulness. Recite some mantras. Recite some mantras so that you actually learn how to unhusk a grain. Similarly, until all sentient beings mixed with impurity afflictions are not liberated from afflictions, the victors will not accomplish Buddha activity. Buddhas could not do much help sentient beings. So that's why Shakyamuni Buddha, he came as a king. He did all the things with people until he was age 29. He acted as though he was a king. He acted that he needed a queen. And he acted as he married somebody. And he did all of that Buddha activity in order to come to the world so that all this unhusked grain will be unhusked and become edible. Otherwise, you wouldn't believe Angulimala was really, really unhusked grain. And Devadatta and the Nanda, just to mention quite a few people, all these unhusked grains, they're all over the place. Next time, having studied this text, you can say, I'm working with some unhusked grain these days. And I'm also very unhusked according to them. You should think you are also not really really unhusked grain to the others, So they have these analogies, really teaching you. This is teaching you. And Asanga Buddha, use these analogies for not random reasons, so that people can remember the teaching. Why analogies or similes used? To illustrate, to make them people remember. Because otherwise they forget that we have Buddha nature. Not every grain is edible like that. All these things, grains that you buy from the supermarket, yes, quickly, you don't even need to wash, they're so clean. You straight away tear the plastic bag and pour and like that. In the old days, it was never like that. So we all want all these wonderful people who are all unhusked grains. Where will they come from? Everybody's very rough, and you should understand They're all unhusked rice. You know, the grain of rice. The example is not just rice, buckwheat or barley. So all of the grains usually have their peels. The grains of rice, buckwheat, or barley that have been unhusked will still remain with husk and beard, and is inedible for men. Yeah. Similarly, the Lord of all qualities that is present in living beings and whose body has not yet been freed from affliction will not give the taste of dharma's joy to beings suppressed by affliction of hunger. Yeah. So this shows that until the beard or husk has been removed from the individual grain, they will not be so edible for people. Likewise, until each and every one of us is also tamed, and we can tame others, we can also tame others, we would not see the edibleness of every person. Every edibleness of the grains means everybody has a Buddha potential. But the Buddha potential is covered in the husk, and of course, even when you sow the seed of the rice have to break from its husk, then it becomes germinated. It grows only from that. So you can never put a whole fruit to plant a seed. No, you have to take the peel out and put the seed itself in the ground. You don't put up fruit with the peel together. You can't put the orange in the garden and then orange will grow. Okay, don't try that. You have to unpeel the orange. You have to put the seed of the orange on the seed. Likewise, we need to have the skillfulness to slowly unpeel the sentient beings. Don't lump the person with the peels. Slowly learn to peel them and separate the peel from the actual fruit. So I'm sort of using the peel and fruit analogy too much earlier, but it's coming as well. So all these analogies makes it the same meaning. So next time you see that somebody is not fulfilling your, someone is not giving you contentment, he's giving you discontentment, you're dissatisfied with somebody, it's like an unhusked grain. You haven't worked with the grain, husk grain. You're always hungry that someone didn't do this to me, didn't do this to me, and we never know how to unhusk the grain and then alleviate our hunger and then become satisfied with them. With some people you're very happy. Why? This reason someone is happy with you're happy with somebody is not because your hunger has been alleviated, because your delusion is distracted to something else in them, not the actual Buddha nature. Who have been impressed by Buddha nature of somebody rather than their beauty, rather than their generosity to you, rather than their loyalty to you? These are not Buddha nature, remember? These are husks. So people are attracted to the husk, then get beaten by the husk. Okay, that'll do. Simile 4, extensive explanation of the gold, covered in a rag. When traveling, a man dropped his gold into a rotting pit of rubbish. But the gold, being indestructible nature, will remain there just as it was for many centuries. So this talks about the gold being such a good metal which not rust. And person may have misplaced the gold. Yeah, he lost the gold and he didn't know where it was. But the gold itself, wherever it is, even including in the pit of rubbish, gold will still remain the gold without being rusting or tarnished or anything. Or likewise, no matter how much kind of rot of rubbish is somebody, like the rubbish of what Putin is talking about, rubbish, really. His rationale or reason why he wanted to go for war is really rubbish. It's rubbish, We feel cautious, and then people believe it in, So maybe he's the only one. He's the only one there that nobody believe in him. But he's so much full of him. Doesn't want to think any of his other advisors have any idea that may hasten him. No, he's full of rotting rubbish. He couldn't see the good. Then a god with divine vision, having seen it, means seen the gold in the rubbish, said to the man, purify these very precious gold lying here and use this precious substance for its true value. Now, who will see the gold? Who will see the gold that is gold ring that is dropped in a rubbish bin? Nobody will see it. Who will see that? Very few. Nobody will go and look for the gold in the garbage. They usually look for the gold ring in their safety or in the bank. People put gold in such places. Gold will help. But most sentient beings, gold, their Buddha nature, is lost in the pile of their afflictions. And they think also their mother or father or friend, they think he's so bad, and you totally forgot he's a gold, he has a Buddha nature. You completely think of the rotting rubbish, and then go nowhere near the rotting rubbish, and thinking it's totally rotting rubbish and no gold whatsoever there. Likewise, the sage who sees the quality of beings, so sage means the Buddha who sees the quality of beings, meaning the Buddha nature. All sentient beings have Buddha nature. Buddha don't see anyone as deluded. He sees them deluded temporarily, but he sees that basically they're all Buddhas. Buddhas see everybody as Buddhas. Submerged in the filth-like afflictions, cause the rainfall of sacred dharma upon them to purify the quagmire of their afflictions. So that's what the Buddha gave the teachings of Dharma, and that's what we're listening to the teachings of. That's why we're reading this, studying this text, so that we actually learn how to receive the benefit of the rain. Because if it rain, the rain will wash all the dirt away, and the gold will stay manifest. Did you notice after some flood? The flood dries up. Many things are there. Many things are there brought by the flood. Likewise that. So lots of rain of the Dharma, listening, reading, repeating these verses again and again. And Buddha has taught these teachings, and then the next generation, then Asanga came in 4th century. He wrote these, and this teaching were taught and translated, studied all these years. We also now reading them. And we also are under the rain of the Dharma. It is washing away all our dirt, all our self-caused dirt, and our afflictions. Having seen the gold has fallen into the pile of rotting rubbish, the God insistently shows this superb, beautiful thing to a man so that he may completely cleanse it. He says, there is the gold, go and get it. It's like saying, everybody have Buddha nature. Do not lump or jump in conclusion that this person is bad. Go and wash him with the rain of Dharma, with your kindness, with your compassion, with your understanding of impermanence of the dirt. With understanding of emptiness of the dirt, with understanding of the temporariness of all things. Similarly, seeing how the precious perfect Buddha within sentient beings that has fallen into the great filth of mental afflictions. Yes, people have fallen into the pit of the mental afflictions. Poor me. He did this to me. Yes, I'm a victim. Yes, another pit. Oh, pit after pit, pit after pit. Isn't there's not enough pit, Oh, you hear people talk about how they suffered. Oh gosh, when you hear their narratives, you can see how many they have fallen into the great filth of their own mental afflictions. The victor deliberately teaches Dharma so that beings may become purified. when you people hear the Dharma, then they're starting to distinguish. Then they realize their afflictions are also impermanent. The other people's afflictions are not the person, and that only is covering the Buddha, the very very peaceful, here's the gold, the piece of gold that is covered in the fallen into the rubbish, rubbish. Because of that, it wouldn't show. But with the rain of Dharma, you have to. Rain means not just small drops, not showers, not drizzle, downpour, downpour of Dharma. You must have the downpour of Dharma, not once a week, as a hobby, as a hobby. Of course, we might be listening to Dharma once a week, but we are taking the shower of Dharma all the time. Do you have any day you don't take shower? You don't. Exactly. You shouldn't have any day that you don't shower under the Dharma. It's a free, it's a free shower, And we do the practice of Vajra, nectar falling down, washing inside and outside. Amazing. These analogies are not just analogies. Yeah, we actually like a quick shower or long shower, when you have lots of water, why have a quick shower? Have a slow shower. If you want to have a hot, take a hot shower. If you want to have cold, have a cold shower. If you want to have a lukewarm shower, have a lukewarm shower. If you need, have a bath, Put bubbles in them. Soak yourself an hour and a half. Why shouldn't you wash the dirt instead of putting more dirt on you? So, you wouldn't believe how many ounces of dirt get washed every time you take a shower. But wait until you hear the Dharma and apply it. How many ounces of wrong view? How many ounces of wrong view gets washed? Then the beautiful gold. Then what you thought of your uncle or your in-law is completely wrong. Then they realize they really are kind people. They're very generous people. They're very understanding people. You thought there was a bit of an interference to your life or a bit of a nuisance. No, it's all your affliction that make you appear them that way. They're never like that. They too have Buddha nature as much as yours. When you do wash your filth, you will see the good gold in them. Because you're covered in dirt, you don't see anything because your face is covered in mud. You can't barely open your eyes. How can you see anything, let alone see the good in others? Give yourself the shower of the Dharma. Until you do that, you would not see that. That's why the Buddha deliberately taught the Dharma, 4 Noble Truth teachings. Teaching on the 12 links of interdependent origination. Teaching on the law of cause and effect. Teaching on the existence of precious Buddha nature in those 8 sutras we quoted. Yeah, this is not, Asanga didn't make this up. He said he was writing on the basis of those 8 sutras. Buddha taught this reign of Dharma. He deliberately taught the Buddha nature teaching so that people do not reject each other outright because of their fallible nature of sentient beings. You wouldn't believe how intolerant sentient beings are when they realize that some people have karma or some problem. They straight away don't want to have anything to do with it. These are people who have never heard any Dharma, particularly Mahayana Dharma, particularly Buddha nature. And they never have bodhicitta. How could they behave like that themselves? They're so intolerant with other sentient beings with filth, as they don't have any filth themselves. So much judgment of their own filth, they don't see any good in others. They can't tolerate anyone who is covered in mud, because they pretend themselves having not a single speck of dust on their body. Such pretense and arrogance is the mud of all mud. So here, this practices teaches us how to humbly see the good in everyone and do not lump them as the mud that appears or projected by your mind, and try to see that they too have Buddha nature, and they too have actually good intention to do the way they. It's just that we do not see it from the same point of view, and therefore do not misunderstand the bee, thinking it wants to sting you. No, bee is interfered by you because when you collected the honey, she wanted to produce more honey, and you're interrupting them so that you can have more honey next time. She's constantly working hard day and night, flapping the wings. Did you know? I read a little bit today about the beekeeping thing. They said the bee have to move their wings so many thousand times to produce one, because unless they buzz and they wave, they don't produce the mucus. So we also, Tibetan word for honey is bee mucus. So in Tibetan we don't call the husband my bee mucus. In the West they call honey to each other, honey. Yeah, you like the honey, but when the bee stings, you just can't stand them. That's not good. So we don't use in Tibetan to our husband or wife honey, because it means bee mucus. Tibetan word for honey is dangzi. Dang means bee, tzi means the mucus or sputum. Hello, my dear bee mucus. You can call that, and then see what's in the word. It's someone calls you honey, you think you're honey. You're probably more the bee than that gives honey. You're probably a wasp that gives no. Quite interesting. So we need to go in the shower of Dharma. Early morning, read one passage. Afternoon, meditate. In the evening, meditate, recite mantra. You have Dharma continuously. Then your life is really saved. Then the Buddha has deliberately taught the Dharma, and you are showering. You want to shower. People have attached bathroom, but still they feel really dirty, so dirty. They take shower, but they're still dirty. They have many clothes to change, but still never change their mind. Oh, what's the point? They have many clothes to change, but attitudes never changing. They think they're a victim, and someone is the wrongdoer, and they don't refuse to change the opinion. That's the dirtiest of all dirt. Poor thing. So we need to hear enough Dharma until we change our attitudes and change the attitudes. Change clothing, change singlets, change undies, change hair, but still no change in attitude. Very dangerous. Very ungrown up. So that's the fourth analogy. Fifth one, suppose there is an inexhaustible mine under the house of a destitute man. Neither the man is aware of it, nor the mine could tell him, I am beneath your house. Similarly, failing to realize that the very precious mind is present within the mind, which is the Buddha nature, although there's nothing to add or to subtract from, means you don't need to do anything with the Buddha nature because it doesn't need to be added or doesn't need to be subtracted. It is there exactly as it is. It is immaculate. It is immutable. It just has to be discovered, So Buddhahood is not Buddhahood. It's Buddha nature. It's Buddha nature. You need to nurture your Buddha nature. And what we do, sadhanas, meditation, reading, is the nurturing of the Buddha nature. And you listen to Dharma, you share teaching with your friends and talk about that. Talk about the teaching of impermanence and emptiness and sadhanas to each other, and then nurturing each other. And when you're nurturing the Buddha nature, and then we already are Buddha, It's just like telling the mind is under my house. Although there's nothing, The sentient beings continues to experience numerous suffering of destitution. Yeah, they are living on top of a mind, but they feel so poor. That's why when Kunu Rinpoche, when was sitting with a little blanket and together with some Indian sadhus on the streets of Varanasi, together with Indian hermits. Indian sadhus are really, really reclusive. They don't have many possessions. They only have a blanket, maybe a little one, and a water container, and that's about it. Maybe a little prayer beads, and they all huddle up in the corner of the street, sleep there, stay the whole night. He was sitting there like that, and when someone saw him from the village who come to recognize him, he says, "Why are you doing this? Looking so poor." And he says, "Well, can I bring you this? Can I buy you this?" He said, "No, I don't need anything. I have Buddha nature." He says, "I have bodhicitta." But I have bodhicitta. I don't need anything. It's very good, isn't it? So you should think like that. You might lose this. You might lose this. Somebody have taken this away from you, or maybe your house was lost in the flood, or your brother got killed in the war, or you lost all your investment and whatever. You should still think, you did not renounce them willingly, but you didn't renounce them willingly. You renounced them because of your calamity. Then instead of thinking you were robbed, you should feel, "Oh, this is a renunciation, come home." Renunciation brought, and then you should, I still have bodhicitta. I still have refuge. It's much more precious than any of those things. Like that, yeah, like that. So you have to discover the mind, people are so destitute of love, of joy, of contentment, of forgiveness. They have money, they have house, they have boat, they have dividend, they have investment, they have holiday homes, but still so destitute of happiness, of contentment, of devotion, of respect. Their respect was there a little bit quickly lost. They're so destitute of respect. They are so destitute of devotion, kindness, and forgiveness. They have so much riches of karmic burden. So this is exactly what we're talking. Person doesn't know what rich he has under the house, like the person who doesn't know his Buddha nature. The destitute man is unaware that the precious mind is under his house, since the mind cannot tell the man, "I, the precious mind, am here." Similarly, all sentient beings are like the destitute man with the mind of dharma in the celestial mansion of their mind. So the sage, Shakyamuni Buddha, has been perfectly born in the world so that they may discover the mind. He came to tell that you have Buddha nature, that Angulimala has Buddha nature. He killed that many people, but he did not reject him because he killed that many people. He did not reject anyone. But in this world, we are so impatient. If someone did this, they say, "No way, we can't have you." And we are just completely rejecting the person without knowing, because they themselves have not realized their Buddha nature. How would they see the Buddha nature in others? So only those who themselves has been shown by the sage Shakyamuni Buddha, those who have met the Buddha, is fortunate indeed. But those who meet the Buddha are very few. Those who meet the Buddha is not only fortunate, those who have heard the teachings are even more fortunate. But more fortunate are those who understand the teachings. And even more fortunate, who are fewer, are those who actually know the teachings. Some only conceptually know, culturally know, but actually they don't know the what meaning of Buddha nature, what meaning of bodhicitta. When you do lump someone and with their karma and with their mistake, you have forgotten the teaching. You know the teaching, but you forgot the teaching. So therefore, we who Mahayana practitioner who have bodhicitta should always remember, he too has Buddha nature. He too have many qualities, many goodness that help this. Even though his help does not satisfy your neurosis, but he benefits thousands of other people. So we must not think like that, but instead see why the Buddha taught with such great purpose, so that we may discover our own mind in us and then discover the mind in others. Sometimes we never discover our mind unless we see the mind in others. So that's why we do the devotion. Devotion to the triple gem, the Buddha gem, Dharma gem, Sangha gem, particularly in the Vajrayana, the deities, the gurus, the lineage gurus. When we start to see the good qualities, you have pure perception, you see the more good in somebody than the bad. If you put all the bad in someone's habits or karma in one basket, if you see all the good in you'll be surprised. The person has more good than the bad that you were making noise about. But we never do that. We just lump the whole thing, and then miss the point. Why? We have not discovered the Buddha. We haven't really heard the Buddha. We really haven't heard his teaching until it hurts your ego. We don't want to hurt our ego. We want to keep the ego intact. That's the main problem. The most problem is the ego, and we don't want the ego to be hurt and problems, sabotage. It's unhusking the grain is not easy. Sometimes the grain nearly get broken. Grain has to go through rough and tough, like the dirty cloth in the washing machine. Most people don't want to go through any of this process of cleansing their mind. So therefore, we need to understand the mind, the good Buddha nature in everyone, and not mind the earth which covers it. Because only thing is, we need to discover where the mind is. And these days they have particular mechanical devices, haven't they, to discover what mind they can discover through various their listening device or whatever. We also should meditate and listen. And someone's kindness, have you seen there? If somebody need to show predisposed that they have Buddha, they have patience, they have kindness, they accept sentient beings with suffering and problems. This means they have Buddha nature. And remember, we talked about at the very beginning, those who have Buddha nature, they predispose with Buddha nature, and therefore they don't reject someone outright because of their own failure to discover their mind within themselves. They also do not see the Buddha nature in others. So that's the fifth analogy. The sixth one is the fruit and peel, which I was mentioning before. There is an imperishable quality in the germinating seeds of mangoes and other fruits in the body of a kingly tree, which grows gradually through plowing the soil, watering, and so on. The wholesome nature of sentient beings is also wrapped in the peel of fruit of their own ignorance, and so on. Similarly, by relying upon such virtues, it will gradually transform into the qualities of a king of the sages. So this is talking about how the fruits and their peels. The tree grows to produce fruit such as banana or mango, which are wrapped up in the peels due to the condition such as humidity, sunlight, air, soil, space, and time. So really important, if the peel didn't exist for a duration of particular time, the sun will be too hot to destroy the very fruit, isn't it? So the peel is just as much as important as much as the fruit itself is. Similarly, the seed and germ of perfect Buddha wrapped in the peel of that fruit of affliction of sentient being will also be conditioned to see the boosting of the wholesome qualities. So this sixth simile is to do with fruit and the peel, of course, usually peel keeps the fruit for long. You don't take the peel out without eating the fruit. If you ever remove the peel so that you can eat the fruit. Otherwise, you keep the peel because peel protects the fruit from getting rot. Likewise, so we should not, therefore, we should not reject the peel. The peel is actually like outer forms of the sentient beings, behavior of karma, and one thing. But deep down in each sentient being, they have the qualities of the fruit, like Buddha nature. Only thing is the peel has wrapped up the things, and we need to learn how to unwrap them. Sometimes when we unwrap the fruits, it is a bit teary, isn't it? Like lemon or lime. When you unpeel it, I wonder why it's so tearful to unwrap. So what's in the peel is not a cause of suffering. It's a peel. Once inside the peel is very good, but we have to remain very, 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 very patient. Like when you're peeling the onion, particularly the red onions. So sentient beings who have a little bit of that kind of a peel, we need to be gentle with them. We need to be slowly learn to work with the unpeeling the peels of the onions, and then actually use it. So therefore, we must not misunderstand that the peel is not the fruit. These days, of course, the peel has much more biodegradable use. Is it biodegradable use? you can actually recycle those, even more use. You can use compost, and a lot more thing can be done from that. So they may look like peel, but they have other uses. So some people's peel-like behavior may be not so settling for you, but it might be teach you whether you have similar things or not. And if you don't acknowledge that you have anything, if you're judging someone, that's a peel of a big peel. Even somebody is a little bit sort of lazy or something. If you tell them lazy, because you're always on time and if you try to show them off that you're so diligent and others are not, it might create another peel. So we have to gently saying someone is not so diligent, maybe a bit late, and they say someone is always 45 minutes late. That at the memorial of Senator Kitching, her husband said she's always late 45 minutes. That's interesting, yeah. Some people remembers things like that and share on memorial. But of course, it wouldn't be nice to say that in front of her. But it's okay to talk nicely about her and saying she's late but never late. She's always late but always arrives bright and smart, and so we have to be skillful with peels of others. Peels of others. We might like the fruit in them, but we have to first deal with the peel of others. Knowing very well, we too have very big, thick peels. Like grapefruit, got big, thick peels. Most people don't want to peel the grapefruit because it's so thick. So most people don't want to peel the fruit. They want it ready-made, served, everything ready, like a 5-star hotel. Everything is cut for you. They don't want to do the hard work of peeling. Okay, number 7. This is the statue with the dirty cloak. A god having found by the roadside a statue of the victor made from precious gem, covered in smelly, dirty cloth, would obviously tell someone of that so that it may be salvaged. Similarly, the unhindered vision, with unhindered vision, Buddhas see even in animals the presence of the very substance of the Sugata, which is referring to the Buddha nature, that are covered by affliction. The animals usually completely don't know anything, and they show the way to attain freedom, attain freedom. Having seen the precious Tathagata's image covered in dirty cloth that is lying by the road, the god would show to the people how it might be uncovered. Similarly, having seen how even animals lying by samsara's roadside, who possess Buddha nature, is covered in affliction of dirty clothes, the victors teach the Dharma to liberate them. Of course, this is just giving an example analogy of animals, but of course this means most sentient beings like animals. They don't know that what's on the roadside covered in the rag, and so sentient beings like unaware of the animals, very very unaware. This is talking of very very subtle afflictions, but they need to be. Unless the Dharma is taught. So this kind of Dharma teaching is referring to the very, very advanced practitioners who have subtle afflictions. So now we're talking about these three last analogies, all refer to the practitioner on the higher bhumis. So these are referring to how to negotiate those subtle affliction, those in the higher path. These are not beginners. These analogies now we are moving on to the practitioners of very advanced realization, but they still have very subtle obscuration. Similar number 8, extensive explanation of the ruler and the pregnant woman. A woman with a repulsive countenance, having no protector and living in shelter for the homeless, is pregnant, but she is unaware of the unborn baby will become a glorious ruler. So this is given an analogy is of first being a woman, secondly having a very not so good physical feature, and also she actually doesn't know. She actually doesn't have anybody to protect her. She probably is carrying a illegitimate child, and she hasn't got a home to live. And yet she is pregnant, So this pregnancy is given an example of the Buddha nature, but all the other things, being a woman in society, particularly in those 4th century, you wouldn't believe in India how they were treated, Let alone women belonging to a very poor kind of a poverty background, have no one to look after her. She has a very bad physical feature, and she's relying on living in a shelter for homeless. So these analogies are giving the example of a helpless sentient being. But she's not aware that she thinks the child that she's carrying is a burden to her. And because she has no home, she has no protector, and no one looks after her, she's dependent on a shelter, and because of that, she doesn't see her would-be child is going to be future ruler. The worldly existence is like the shelter for the homeless. So samsara, this is why Asanga's analogies are very multi-layered meanings. Worldly existence with samsara is like the shelter for the homeless. Most people value what they have in samsara: a land, a house, the husband, the family, the field, the income, the jobs, status, friends, and a relationship. Most people would love to have all of these things. But that shelter is temporary, isn't it? But most people don't think all these possessions, all these things are only temporary. They think they're permanent. See, this is the problem. This is why the women-like analogy given, sentient beings has been defeated. They defeated by their wrong view, thinking all the things they have is for permanent. They don't realize this is just a temporary accommodation. They don't realize these are temporary possessions. These are just temporary relationships. These are temporary health. These are temporary possessions and positions. They all mistakenly think these are all permanent. But the woman who is living in the shelter for the homeless know that that place is temporary. And her misery or worry and anxiety will be doubled up because of nature of her body, pregnant, nobody looks after her, and she doesn't have any attractive qualities. And so sentient beings are like that, you know. Yeah. So sentient beings are like the pregnant woman. So we know pregnant woman is not some kind of is a social analogy of someone who is, you know, even in the buses and trains, there's a particular seat where they can sit in the west, you know. You know, but in the old days, no. Pregnant woman who hasn't got a actual husband, who hasn't got a home, who is very old or who's very unwell, who's not attractive or who whatever, and most people would treat them with contempt, you know. So sentient beings has become like her, but she's unaware of that. Yeah, being expectant, she has protector and immaculate Buddha nature resemble being pregnant. But she doesn't know that, you know. She actually have the baby. Once it's born, it slowly grow, become a king, become a ruler. She actually have a protector. Her best asset is the baby, you know. But she doesn't know that. She is always worrying about her temporary accommodation, all the other difficulties. She always worried about that. But who the sentient being, like a pregnant woman, think my child will give me, my unborn child will become a king and being a ruler, and my life will be fantastic? Nobody would that. So some women wanted to abort the child because it's too much a burden. They don't want to have a baby. They're completely underprepared. They have nowhere to go, nowhere to live. Then they're not hopeful of anything the good the baby will be to them. But she has the baby. Like that, we all have the would-be ruler like the Buddha nature in us, resemble by the pregnant woman. The woman dressed in shabby clothing, with unpleasant form, and living in shelter for the homeless, endure extreme sufferings, even though she's pregnant with a ruler. Similarly, in spite of a protector within, beings deem themselves unguarded. People usually says, I'm no good, I'm useless, I don't want to live, I'm not worthy of doing this, People are always doing this, you know. Beings deem themselves unguarded, unworthy. Why? Because they have never heard of Buddha nature. It's so disrespectful to humanity to mistreat and look down and look with contempt to yourself. So that's why we call precious human rebirth. You have Buddha nature. These are very good remedy for low self-esteem. People who always treat themselves with contempt. Lots of people commit suicide because they just don't like themselves and have no peace in their mind. They have no peace at all because sentient beings are deeply rooted in the suffering under the sway of poor me afflictions. And maybe poor world. Also, they don't see any good in the world. They get really depressed because they don't see Buddha nature in anybody. And because of that, they get depressed. That's why this particular text, Buddha nature, is such a positive subject. This is why Sakya Pandita, those who have read Sakya Pandita's clarifying the sage's intent. First chapter is Buddha nature. Most other Tibetan Buddhist texts, first chapter is hell. Can you believe it? They don't know what they're talking about. Sakya Pandita taught them, if you study Dharma according to this sequence, you will inspire people. But you frighten them to death, telling them you will go to this hell if you did this, you will go to that hell if you did this, all this, that, before talking refuge, before talking Buddha nature. That's the wrong order of the teachings. So the teaching has to be taught not only what, but in the correct order. And sometimes the teaching itself, most Buddhist teachings always start with the sufferings. Always suffering. Noble truth of suffering. Noble truth of suffering. And Sakya Pandita and Gampopa are these two luminaries of Tibetan Buddhism. You read their books, completely different. Gampopa's writing is called Jewel Ornament of Liberation. He also do the same, because they both follow the Mahayana text called Mahayana Sutra Alankara, in which they say you have to first teach people on the Buddha nature, to inspire them, not only about themselves, but also they have believe in everyone, the basic goodness in everyone. Instead of talking about the hells and frighten them to death. It's no different from Christians. No different. So some people said all the religions agree in one thing, how bad the hell is. How bad the hell is. In Buddhism we say even those in hell has Buddha nature. Even those in the deepest of hell, they too have Buddha nature. We should think like that. That's why Shakyamuni Buddha never hesitated embracing Angulimala, Devadatta, and others who with extreme problems. They just mass murderer. Like Angulimala was mass murderer, not just a criminal. And still never sort of reject them outright and embrace them. So that's why the 13th century masters, like 12th century masters like Sakya Pandita and the Gampopa, their work actually start with the Buddha nature before they talk about all the horrible things about the different realms of existence. Why? Because we have these texts, a whole 404 verses taught by Asanga, sitting among the Nalanda Pandita's works. Why they don't read that first and put those ideas in the so-called graduate path to enlightenment? Maybe they do, but not in the right place. So anyway, so the whole idea of inspiring, I remember a few years ago, Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche always give he provokes everybody, makes everybody think when he gives teaching, He says, why do all these amazing Dharma textbooks start with hell all the time? Why don't talk about the qualities of Buddha and the Dharma and the Sangha and bodhicitta and Buddha nature? He says, not enough of them too. He said, we need to rewrite the textbooks. I would argue with him, we don't need to rewrite. There are books already written in 12th century, translated into Mongolian. Before any Tibetan texts were ever translated into any languages, the Mongolians received the book and they translated into their languages. Sakya Pandita's work was the first to be ever Tibetan work to be translated in other languages. Why? Because it was such a text based on Mahayana Sutra Alankara, in which the 10 chapters are listed as the Mahayana text. The Buddha nature comes. And that in that Buddha nature teaching is quite short, But these texts we are studying is comprehensive. Like what we are talking about. So we have much more bigger heart And other sentient beings have just as big as heart as we can discover in us. And we will start seeing the good in everyone. More important than seeing the bad in others. Then every single grain has a husk, but when you weigh the grain and husk, I'm sure the grain is heavier than the husk. Hope so. At least the grain is edible, the husk is not. So therefore we need to be able to distinguish that. Okay, last of the 9 examples, the extensive explanation. Golden statue in the clay mold. Now this is the statue in the mold, yeah? So we are all in the mold. We are all in the mold. We are all in the mold. Somebody forgot to open it. Okay. Seeing the well-developed, peaceful golden statue cast inside clay mold, one knows that by removing the outer cast, the gold that lies within is revealed. Similarly, perfectly enlightened one completely see that there are afflictions on the luminous nature, but they are adventitious and purify sentient beings who are like mines of fresh gems from the obscurations. So have to be gentle with people with obscuration, gentle with people with. You don't break the mold too quickly. You have to be gentle how you take the mold out. So seeing the stainless, brilliant golden statue inside the clay mold, the expert goldsmith peacefully dismantle and chip away all the clay. Similarly, knowing the peaceful mind like nature of purified gold, by giving dharma teaching, the omniscient one chip away and clean all the obscurations. So that's why we need teachings. We pray for the dharma to flourish. Why? If dharma flourish, people will know how to be slow, gently chip away those mold, and then reveal the beautiful statue that is cast inside. But don't mistake the mold for the statue inside. So that's why we, just like a goldsmith knows and uses the mold to produce sentient beings with problems, we should not reject them for what they are, but rather work with them skillfully. And that's why we need patience. That's why we need mindfulness. That's why we need calm abiding. That's why we need understanding of impermanence. That you don't hit with one hammer and break the whole try to break the whole mold together. Maybe statue might break. So you have to chip away gently. Gently bring a smallest. So first start with the very smallest hammer. Have you seen those people? Goldsmith got lots of different sizes of hammers, and chisels and little pins. He doesn't use every tool randomly. He used one particular, and then slowly use the smaller ones, and then the cast comes out, and the beautiful statue is revealed from the mold. So we need to be gentle with each other, not try to be aggressive, not try to be impatient, not try to reject something because it doesn't work like that. That's not Buddhism. That's not Buddhism, let alone Mahayana. That sounds like a zero tolerance culture wherever it comes from. Eye for an eye, they call it. As if you've got plenty of extra eyes, No. So Buddhist people need to learn the Buddhist conduct, Buddhist attitude, Buddhist views, and think and talk in Buddhist language, but actually still have this Judeo-Christian mentality. Like have no tolerance, no understanding, always seeing good and evil. Don't see things as temporary, how things need to be dealt with mindfully and with the middle way. If we do that, and then of course we have truly understood Buddha Dharma, because it does emphasize the importance of seeing good in everyone, Buddha nature. Now, Theravada teachings do not explicitly use this terminology. So therefore, this is a unique Mahayana Buddhist teaching, because that's why it's called Mahayana Sutra. Shastra. This is Shastra. Shastra is the commentary literature. The actual sutras in which these very 9 analogies taught is the other 8 sutras we already quoted at the very beginning. So these are not some unoriginal teachings of the Buddha. It's that Asanga put the whole this text, which is entirely on the subject of the 7 Vajra points, of which we are discussing the 4th Vajra point, the Buddha nature. The first 3 are Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, the qualities of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. These are the 3 results of practicing Buddha nature. The realization of the Buddhahood and the qualities and activities, these things comes as a result of nurturing the Buddha nature. This is where the nurturing Buddha nature is when you meditate. You meditate not so that you become meditator, so that you nurture the Buddha nature. You are calm enough to see the very gem that's hidden under the rag, or very Buddha that's covered in the moldy lotus flower. Your mind will penetratively see these things in everyone. No matter how rough or aggressive or unkind or brutal someone is, you still see them with kindness and send them with good wishes. No matter what they're going through temporarily, maybe it's 26 days is quite long to have a war, but still don't give up. Still send loving kindness to that man, to his head, to his thought, to his ways, to his people, and may something good come to him. And maybe this is a very rough way of unhusking the grain. Maybe everybody is being unhusked by this. Maybe there has been so much aggression against his people that he can't understand. Maybe poor man is still trying to grapple with that. How did our nation fell to these pieces 30 years ago? And he just don't understand the story. He just becomes so caught in the husk of others, and he doesn't realize that these kind of sentient beings need to work kindly and patiently. But he will. We have to say, he will. But it's right now, he's in this spin. He's just spun by this, he's completely dizzy, If we all send loving kindness, if we all send kindness and understanding and compassion, that will help him. And we should have hope in that. But if you take sides, you will not help. Emotionally, your conversation, you take sides. It's not saying conventionally who's right or who's wrong. Every person says he's wrong, and most people, except they are really, patriotic, national Russian, most people say that. But that's not going to help him. So we need to send thoughts of kindness and understanding and compassion. May his Buddha nature does not get wallowed, doesn't get sort of drowned under all the other defilements and afflictions, which currently it seems to be the case. So we need to meditate every day and be inclusive of all sentient beings who have been our mothers, and whether Putin or otherwise. And we don't want any of our mother sentient being who has Buddha nature to be forgotten and treated with contempt. If we do that, then we too have forgotten that we have Buddha nature. We have to be kind to those who are suffering, who are causing sufferings, who believe they are liberating from some problem, but actually destroying their homes, destroying their whole cities. So deluded, isn't he? So he doesn't know what is cause of happiness, because he's completely misplaced his mind. he doesn't understand. So that's why the compassion needs to be. May the Dharma teaching some way or another reaches him and his people. May someone in a positive influence actually be able to make him to come to his senses and discover the good that lie in everyone, and forget these terrible mean-minded attitudes and vision perception from which he justifies to do this thing that no one likes, including his own people. I don't think he likes either. He just needs someone to talk to him gently. He just hasn't got that because his position is so precariously dangerous, you know. So that's why this is the collective karma of the world, in many ways is relatively diverted or hijacked by these right and wrong attitudes. So please, I would like everyone to send good vibration by the small merit of meditating on the Buddha nature, as illustrated by these 9 similes. May this slowly shift things to bring to a gentle ending of this tyranny and violence. I'm sure this is a very important prayer for this point in time, as well as all other situations. So with this we'll conclude, everyone. Thank you very much. So we will do the dedication merits. Whatever merit I have, may hope because to the Mahayana teaching courage manjushenu Asama Trabara de la following all the example Ajadega all the matter Mede Salam Body Jeda Teba Varanaya Danza where has been bombarding freely without generation. Thank you.